From a top leadership standpoint of kind of what we've seen and say over the last 4 years with like, Milley and I'm trying to remember who's the other guy? Austin. To me, those guys seem like not the right guys for that job. I am encouraged. Similarly, it sounds like with you, like I am a fan of Hegseth. I'm curious to get your take on that role. It was kind of a surprise to me, but the more I think and thought about it, the more it seems like it makes sense. But I'm curious to get your take on specific to military leadership at that level. Do you think guys like that are the right people for the job? If you were in that position, or who do you think would do the best job for a position like that? What kind of person succeeds there?
So there's an unknown factor that I'll talk about when I look at some of these senior leaders, and this is something that I garnered from reading and studying a lot about the Vietnam War, and that is there's a certain level of when people are playing the game, because if they don't play the game, they're going to be removed and they will lose all influence that they might have had. So for instance, let's say you work for me and I'm like, hey, I want everyone to wear yellow t-shirts. And, if people don't wear yellow t-shirts, I'm going to court-martial them. And you go, okay, listen, hey guys, Jocko wants us to wear yellow t-shirts. Like, I know it's a pain, but if we don't put these yellow t-shirts on, like, he's going to start court-martialing people. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. So we're doing it. Now, from the outside, here's Mike reinforcing Jocko's terrible plan. When in reality, if you go, hey, Jocko, we're not doing that, I go, cool, Mike, you're fired. Fred, make everyone wear yellow t-shirts. Fred goes, yes, sir, and does what I tell him to do, and now there's no buffer between the troops. I can't tell sometimes how much of a person's behavior is them trying to play the game and maintain some level of influence over the boss, and how much of it is them actually believing what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because to me, because when it comes down to it, like, it's very straightforward answers, right? What is the Department of Defense for? To fight and win wars. Like, that's what we're to fight and win wars. Do you want to throw deter in there? Cool. We'll deter them too. But how do you deter? By fighting and winning, being prepared to fight and win. So whenever I hear senior leadership talking about things that don't have much to do with fight and win wars, I am suspect. I would have to get him on a lie detector to have him say, hey, you know what? Actually, I went to the boss behind the scenes and I told him that these yellow t-shirts are a bad idea. And he actually explained to me that the reason he's doing this is because there's going to be a blue t-shirt dye, and he doesn't want the enemy to know that there's going to be that we ran out of blue t-shirt dye. So he's shifting us to yellow now, so that the way the enemy doesn't know. And I go, oh, okay. You see what I'm saying? All of a sudden that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what we see on the surface, you go, what are they doing? Now, at a certain point, I start to doubt that they're just playing the game, and it starts to seem like maybe they believe some of the stuff that they're imposing on the troops, and the things that they're imposing on the troops no longer has anything to do with fighting and winning wars. It has to do with other things that don't matter.
Yeah.
So when you ask me about Hegseth, I think he's a guy, we need change. We need change. You know what that means? You bring in a change agent. In my opinion, from what I know about Pete Hegseth, I know him, I've met him, I've talked to him. I understand, I know his history of serving. I think he's going to be a change agent.
Yeah.
And I support that.
Yeah. For me, I agree. When it comes to guys like Austin and Milley, if it's little things, uniforms or, shit that doesn't really matter, it's just annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. To me, and where I'm glad you said, at some point, because to me, the withdrawal is that point. To say
there's other points, yes, but
the
withdrawal is a huge.
But for sure, it's like you could have resigned. If it's me, like, that's not even a tough decision. Like, my fucking letter is on your desk. Like, if you're not doing it this way, I'm not being part of this. Like, to kind of die on that hill of like, well, no, it's out of our hand, just enforcing policy, and we're just doing what we were told. Like, you're not the guy that says that.
Inexcusable and unacceptable.
Yeah.
So the one of the main reasons that I have this whole idea in my head is I mentioned my favorite quote, which is "No fucking slack" by David Hackworth. Well, David Hackworth was one of the most decorated soldiers in history. He fought in the Korean War. He fought in Vietnam. He spent 4 years in Vietnam, and he did 2 tours as a battalion commander, and he was the golden child. And towards the end of his last tour, he did an interview, and he said that if we don't change the way we're fighting this war, we're going to lose, basically. He said a bunch of other things. And because he said that, and he was a senior officer, they drummed him out of the Army, and he was blacklisted, and that was it. It was the end of his career. I sometimes look at that decision that he made and think, well, if he wouldn't have done that interview, maybe he would have become a brigade commander. Maybe he would have become in fact, he would have been a brigade commander. He would have been a division commander. He possibly could have, reached even more senior levels of leadership in the Army. And then could he have, in fact, changed things? We don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And with all that being said, he had been in Vietnam for 4 years. He understood and had lost so many guys himself, and had seen so many what he calls American studs, maimed and killed, that he couldn't take it anymore. And that's why he did that interview. So I think your assessment is correct. And you said, you were glad I said at some point. Yes, at some point. And first of all, if you don't have the influence over your leadership to be able to tell them, hey, let me run this withdrawal. I got this. You guys, you talk to me in 30 days. You can say, thank you. I got this. And I'm the president. I go, Mike, you say you got it. I trust you. Go take care of it. And it's done. If I'm micromanaging you, and like you said, you execute it, there's no excuse. This is Napoleon said this. If you're ordered to do something and you execute it and it's wrong, and you know it's wrong, you're still culpable.
Yeah,
you're still culpable. So it's very, very sad to see. It's hard to get in their heads to understand like what they could be thinking. I mean, if you're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, do you not like what else are you looking for?
Yeah.
Well, are you trying to make the next rank? There's no next rank.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Take care of your soldiers.
Yeah.
Take care of your Marines. Take care of your sailors. Take care of your airmen. That's what you should be focused on.
Yeah. From your perspective, I mean, when you say it's unforgivable, let's say hypothetically you become president tomorrow. How do you handle that? Is firing enough?
I that's where I'd start. That's where I'd start. And it'd probably result, here's what would be enough for me. What would be enough for me is putting principles of leadership and policy in that this kind of thing does not happen again. That to me, the past is the past, and sure, I'd fire those guys and perhaps mete out some kind of, other form of punitive actions. But what I would be more focused on is what can we do as a nation? What can we do as a military organization, as a Department of Defense, to ensure that these mistakes, these terrible mistakes, these devastating mistakes never happen again?
Yeah. And that starts with just putting the right people in place.
It starts with putting the right people, the right policy, and the right leadership principles guiding people's actions.
Yeah. I think it's a great point, and I wish more people focused on that. It's like, focus on the shit that you can control, which there aren't very many of those things, I think it's a great answer. Going back to now, you have kind of the playbook of how to execute, the big mish on as task unit bruiser. I mean, the amount of operations and stories and books and just the epic nature of that whole deployment is one that I don't know that is rivaled, frankly. I mean, So many things happened, and it was such a progression during the Iraq War, and you were right in the middle of it. I know it's kind of impossible to synopsize what that deployment was like, but if you could kind of walk us through that and what it was like at the helm.
Yeah, it was a very violent kinetic battlefield. The insurgents, for the most part, controlled 2/3 of the city, meaning that they had control over those areas. You know, there was roads that if you drove down those roads, you'd hit 2, 3, 4, 5 IEDs in 300-400 meters. So the enemy had control over those territories, and the 1180 again after the 228 under Colonel Gronsky, incredible soldiers. After they got that external area secured, it was McFarland and the 11AD made up of soldiers and Marines, 38 Marines and a 38 Marines, 137, 135, first the 506, just an incredible array of awesome battalions to go in there and take back that city. And so when we pushed in the city, it was actually interesting when I had General McFarland on my podcast. People were asking me, like, "Hey, Jocko," like meaning my commanding officer, "How are you killing all these people? Like, what is going on?" Meaning the Siege Assotive commander, like, "Hey, SEAL team commander, why is your task unit in Ramadi killing all these people? How is this happening?" Well, McFarland was getting asked the same exact question by the MEF. Like, what is going on? And it's like, come and look. Come and see it. Because when you set up a combat outpost in downtown South Central Ramadi, the enemy is going to attack you. That's what's going to happen. And when the enemy attacks you, you are going to kill them. Yeah. And so that's what happened. And it happened, we were putting in those combat outposts. Again, it was kind of interesting as I prepared for that podcast with Colonel McFarland. You're putting together the dates, and it's one big blur of a deployment. But man, we were putting in combat outposts like every 3, 4, 5 days. So, and again, I say we, I mean this brigade, which we participated in various levels in different combat outposts. But one of these missions is like crazy. You have between 30 and 50 armor pieces. So like tanks and Bradleys. You have 200 12-foot tall concrete T-barriers that are going to get moved down on flatbed trucks and put in position in cranes. And then little Jersey barriers, 250 of those that are going to go out in front of those, and then concertina wire. We used to fill a sandbag to eat. So when you go to the chow hall, you'd fill a sandbag and put it on the back of a flatbed truck. Why? Because when we'd put it in a combat outpost, they would need 20 or 30,000 sandbags. So imagine everything I just said, and we're going to go build a combat outpost. Again, this is the 11AD. We are going to go build this combat outpost, and we're going to do that every 4 days, 5 days. Think about just the logistics alone.
Yeah.
And then you think about this massive amount of combat power going into an enemy-controlled territory and doing this and executing it. And so, from the SEAL perspective, you're going to put a combat outpost on this. Take this little corner where there's 4 buildings. So, kind of synopsis. Platoon goes in. One of the 2 platoons or one element of 2 platoons goes in, secures the buildings at night, sets up overwatch position. Minesweepers come in, clear the roads. Now, SEALs have eyes on the roads. People come out, put IEDs, which they do. They called it reseeding IEDs. It was common TTP. They come out to put reseed IEDs. We kill 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Once those buildings are secure, mines have been swept, in come the Bradleys. This is me rolling in too. Like I'd usually roll in with the conventional forces, do the deconfliction. So now we come in with the conventional forces, link up with the SEALs. So now you've got a perimeter of Bradleys, you've got a perimeter of soldiers, and you've got a construction project that's underway. So now what are the SEALs going to do? Push out from there, maybe 300, 400 meters away. We had already pre-designated buildings. take a building that has long access view down a road, a building that has, there's known enemy gathering areas. So when the enemy attacks, we have a decent idea, or at least a hypothesis of where they'll come from, or maybe a couple places that they'll come from. And in order to get from point A to point B, they're going to have to cross a road. We'd set up on that road. And so the enemy doesn't know we're there. And meanwhile, there's a big, giant construction project happening. And that is like that looks like a piece of steak to a pig, right? They're just hungry. And, and in fact, General McFarland, I never used this term until I read something that he wrote. He was like, it was bait. It was like bait. Having these combat outposts being built was like bait being out there. Now, it wasn't just bait because the combat outpost was going to stay there, but it would draw all these flies.
Yeah.
And so then as these flies would get drawn in, SEAL snipers and machine gunners set up in either one or two overwatch positions, kill over and over and over again.
Was you say that they're going to be manned? Who's from a manpower standpoint? Who is maintaining the presence there once it's established?
So once the combat outpost was built, generally speaking, an Army company would take possession of that, a U.S. Army company or a Marine Corps company, and then they would be plussed up with some kind of an Iraqi element, whether it was a platoon or a company. Maybe a platoon plus would roll in, and so you'd have Iraqi soldiers there, and you'd have American coalition forces there. And now, once that combat outpost is established, go out and patrol the neighborhoods. Yeah. When you go out and patrol the neighborhoods, what do I mean that? You go out and you meet and greet with the local populace. And you go, hey, how's it going? What do you need? Where are the bad guys? Do you need medical care? Do you need food? Do you need water? Where are the bad guys? Do you need some medical help for your kid? Cool. Where are the bad guys? Do you need help, fuel for your generator? All right. Where are the bad guys? And as we did that, and again, we being this whole group, eventually they start telling you where the bad guys are.
Yeah. And
then it's direct action raids. And a lot of the bad guys would, quite frankly, we'd kill them or they'd leave.
Yeah. Was there a kind of a main talk that had almost a spider web board of where they're being put, where the next one's like, was it super strategic that way?
It was totally strategic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like this one comes here first and then that,
Yep.
And all the way down.
All planned. Yeah. And there's it was freaking epic, it was in, brigade sand tables. So like there would be the entire floor, like a 30 by 30 foot sand table of Ramadi, of showing, all right, Marines are going to hold this road up here, and literally you'd have a company commander from 3-8 Marines who'd be like, hey, here's what's happening over here. Here's what we're going to push into. And then, and here's the company commander from the Army that's saying, yep, while they're doing that, here's what we're going to be doing. And we'd go through entire, brigade size sand table rock drills. It was epic.
How do you determine, like when you're dirt diving the whole thing before this big operation starts, pinpointing where to put the outposts and which ones come first? Like how do you figure that out?
Look at the routes, and then quite honestly, we did recons. And by we, now I'm talking about like SEAL Team 3 Task Unit Bruiser would do recons and go out and say, hey, we went and looked at this building. Here's what it looks like. Here's the surrounding terrain. And the brigade and battalion could use that intelligence to determine where would be the best place. Or they would send out their own recon on once if we didn't have the manpower to do it. Yeah. Because, we only had 40 guys, so we couldn't go out all the time.
Yeah. Was it you, or was it a combination of you and several others that put that together of deciding where those outposts go, or was that coming down from the top?
Oh, that's the brigade commander. But, so General McFarland, just an outstanding leader. And, we'd be sitting there looking at the battle map. And, well, we got access over here. Here's a building. I mean, this is not rocket science. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody in the 11AD would say that it's rocket science. It's hard ass work. Yeah. But, you could probably show a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old kid that's interested in military tactics and say, okay, we want to put some combat outposts in this city. Where do you think?
Yeah.
And if I sat down and showed you the map, if I showed you the map right now, you'd go, put one here. I'd be like, Yep, that's Cop Falcon. Put one up here. Yep, that's Crap Firecracker. Put one over here. Yep, that's Eagle Nest. This is not rocket science.
I guess for me, the neat thing to hear about it is, so many deployments are hit or miss with leadership, even allowing you that kind of autonomy. And, I know, because I was in Iraq at the early, at the start of it, and one of our task unit commanders, or what, it was kind of a mixed bag of, we had different leaders at different locations, and it's kind of a mess. But some were, very lenient and fucking leash is let off, and others were the exact opposite of that. To me, it's just, that's how it should be, kind of from the decentralized, methodology of whoever the higher ups that, have the tactical control of that environment is saying, hey, you guys figure it out. I think that's how it needs to be. Yep. It's just a lot of times it's not that way.
Yeah, and just to be really clear, to your point, the city of Ramadi was chopped up and given to battalions who were controlling these certain areas of operation. And so the brigade commander would say, or the battalion commander would say, hey, I want to put a combat outpost. Can you give me the resources? And the brigade commander would say, either yes, I can, or hold on, give me 2 weeks. And then they'd say, yep, here's where I want to put it. Why do you want to put it there? Yep, makes sense, cool. And then go execute.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, it was absolutely decentralized command. It was amazing to watch. It was amazing to be a part of. Yeah. And it was extremely effective.
Yeah. How many different commanders were in charge of Ramadi as a broken up? I mean, was it 3 or 4 or 5?
Oh, no, there was like, inside the city, I think there was probably 5 different battalions controlled the city itself and the immediate outskirts of the city. Am I getting that right? Something like that. 4 or 5, 137, 135, first of the 506, 38 Marines. So that's sort of like, those 4 were sort of like the downtown Ramadi area.
And ballpark people?
5,600.
5,000. Wow,
yeah.
That's not even a ballpark.
And each one of those battalions had between 500 and 800 people, maybe, and sometimes they even had up to like 1,000 or 1,100, depending on the other assets that got chopped to them. Yeah. Because again, like the brigade commander would say, "Oh, you're going to go build a combat outpost. Cool. I'm going to give you another company of men. It's another 200 guys to plus up your battalion for the next 3 weeks while you do this." Yeah. So he was moving those chess pieces around the board.
Yeah. Were you guys involved in all different areas of that, or were you attached to just one battalion commander?
Both. We put an element over on Eastern Ramadi, which was with the 1st of the 506, just outstanding soldiers. And then we had another group that was on Western Ramadi. So that was pretty much a Delta platoon on Eastern Ramadi with Seth Stone, and then Leif's platoon on Western Ramadi. And then they would, since Eastern Ramadi was pretty much the 1st of the 506, and it was very dangerous to go back and forth. Yeah. Like driving down that road, Route Michigan had an average of 7 to 10 roadside bombs on it a day, detonated. Man. So it wasn't like we were running like, hey, we're going to go do an op, send some guys over. We didn't do that. Those guys lived there. The Delta platoon guys lived there, and the Charlie platoon guys lived on Western at Camp Mark Lee, what eventually became Camp Mark Lee, and they would work with, so Leif covered more, he would do stuff with 38, he would do stuff with 137, he would do stuff with 135. For Seth and the Delta guys, they were kind of pretty much married to the 1st of the 506, partially just because the tyranny of the road getting over there. Yeah. And we slowly built up that element over time. Yeah. It started off as just like 6 guys, 8 guys or something like that with Det Corregidor.
When you guys first got there were no outposts, right?
There was not really. There was OPs. Okay. So they had little OPs along Route Michigan. Yeah. OP Array, OP Hotel, OP VA. They had some OPs, but they weren't like heavily reinforced, and they were basically just on Route Michigan.
Okay. When you went into that intel tent and saw, holy shit, there's all this, combat outposts that need to be done at the start of it.
Again, just to make sure I'm not trying to sound like a tactical genius. No. I didn't make that assessment. I was like, damn, this sucks.
Yeah. But I guess just when you became aware of that, Was it okay, there's 37 combat outposts that we need to establish to what we think will take over Ramadi? Is that kind of how it went, and then you just ticked them off a list, or was it?
No, again, this was not me planning. This is the brigade as a team planning.
Yeah.
But it's honestly, it's cover and move. So if you set up a combat outpost, what supporting distance can I give you? How can we cover this whole road? Well, if I put a Bradley on one end and you put a Bradley on the other end, we could, and we're 1,000 yards apart. Cool. Maybe 1,500 yards. We want to make sure that we're not going to shoot each other. But what does it take to cover this area?
Okay.
And so when you start and what was interesting is about the size of your hand. On a certain size battle map, if you put your hand on the battle map, you would touch Americans.
Yeah.
So it ended up being they ended up all being between 500 and 1,000, maybe between 500 and 1,500 meters apart. But really it was more like 500 to 1,000 meters apart. Like you would get to another combat outpost, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Because it really made you feel like worst case scenario, I can get back to this freaking combat outpost.
Yeah. And that was a 6-month deployment?
Yep.
In that 6 months, do you recall about how many combat outposts you guys were able to install across the city?
Yeah, again, it's and there's a little bit of a semantics on what you'd call a combat outpost, but it ended up being like 10.
Yeah.